Hi, this is Rob Chadwick from ADL. I'm continuing my dev blog here on the Sandbox terrain engine. I'm just about done with this. I think I've done about all I know how to do, and I've been really OCD about the whole thing. It's kind of time to stop. So we're looking here at a new example. I put something together that I thought was a little bit more real world because Steve mentioned that what good is this, right? And the truth is, a lot of the examples we've been using are such enormous spaces that for the use cases we imagine people using in the sandbox, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we've been doing like 50 square kilometers, right? And no one's going to do that. It's difficult to author stuff that works there anyway. So since the last time I had worked on this, a couple of minor changes. One thing we're doing is we are mixing the near field and the kind of medium field much more abruptly. This is saving us a lot of rendering power, and from at least like the first person perspective, it's basically invisible. When I'm looking straight down on the terrain and I pull out, you can very clearly see the near range and the medium range mixing together. But from like a first person perspective, it's really not very visible. So this example I put together is more like 4 square kilometers. And it's like an amount of space you could actually imagine building a scenario in, rather than, 50 square miles or something. Like the guy's going to be walking for days trying to get the avatar to where he needs to go. What's the point, right? I've also toned it down a little bit. Some of you guys who have seen some of my other dev blog stuff know that I like it super contrasty with a ton of atmospherics and everything. It's much more subtle here. Something else that turns out in the last example I threw up last week, we were doing a clamp operation in the wrong order, and the contribution from the ambient was really not correct. So this now is using the correct ambient contribution. Also, I found that when we mix the near plane normal map, like the near normal map, and the medium normal map, like here's the medium and there's the near, right? Because I don't want to generate a new tangent frame with the derivative operations for every component, right, or for every different scale, I was just reusing the tangent frame for the big scale texture here on the small scale normal maps. And it turns out that's not correct, but luckily you don't have to generate a second normal frame if it's just a scale. Right, you can just scale up the normal that comes out of the TBN multiplication. So that works nicely, and the normal maps now look good as they ought to. So let me fly out a little bit, and I'll show you this landscape a little bit more. Like I said, it's a couple of square kilometers, I think 4 by 4, and it contains 2 mountains. I'm also, just for the sake of kind of argument here, using a height map that's actually an image file. It's easier to edit, it's easier to work with. And I think from like a perspective of how will users actually use this thing, they're probably going to be making height maps. So I wanted to make sure that would all work properly, and this works okay. Here's the other mountain. So this all looks pretty much the same. One thing I like about this particular chunk of art is just that it's kind of got features. There's like ridges and grass, and it's not too terribly uniform, which some of the other stuff all ends up looking uniform. And so here we are. Let me fly out, and I'll show you some of the settings for like how all this is put together, right? So you could conceivably make something on your own that looks something like this. First, let me fly over to first person. Here's my character. He's standing down in some valley here, and you'll note that as usual, we do have correct ground clamping and everything, so that's nice. You can see my guy just walking along the ground here. Let me select him, just go like that, fly into the terrain here. Very nice. So let me show you kind of the settings that went into this, because I think it's interesting and relevant, and maybe somebody one day will reference this to figure out what to do. I've got the terrain selected. I'm looking at the properties. I've got the height scale set to 1. It just turns out that the defaults were fine. Whenever you're using an image file, it turns out that the height map is really important, and the value 1, like you have no idea if that's high enough or what. In this case, it just kind of worked out. It looked okay. Data length and data height, 2000 by 2000. That means that the height map I'm using, and let me show you the height map. Oh, that is the mix map. Here's the height map. This height map, I've just said it's 2000 by 2000 meters in real space. If you're interested, this is the mix map, and I made this off of the height map with a little bit of help from 3ds Max and Photoshop. And this defines where different textures go. So that's the mix map. That's the height map. This is what they look like together. I do have the additional noise box checked. Watch, if I uncheck this, it'll rebuild the terrain. It's a little bit smoother, although realistically from these distances you can't see the difference, what with a normal map and everything. Let's see, what else we've got going on. The maximum tile size is really enormous. This just means that the entire terrain is going to be shown no matter what, right? Because the extents are only 1,000 meters. It turns out that this extents number is 1,000 to the left and 1,000 to the right or something because it's half of the data source. So you would have thought they would line up perfectly, but it turns out one has to be double. I might change that in the future, FYI, so be warned there. Min tile size 16, tile res 16. Again, that just shows you what the scale of the. Let me see if I can flip us over to wireframe. That just shows you the scale of the rendering tiles. You note that as I get up higher in the air, the minimum value changes. That is by design. But the maximum tightest possible tile here. Oh, I get under the ground there. Is 16 by 16 meters, and it's a grid of 16 by 16 positions. So that gives you 1 meter per square meter. Sorry, 1 vertice per square meter maximum resolution. That's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. I picked the height map with the, let's see, where's the text, no, height map data source URL. That's how you pick the height map. The texture URL, that's actually the texture we use at the far range, which is this kind of brown-gray texture, which is not really the right texture. It's just what I had laying around. So at the far range, which we're doing at 1,000 meters, we show that texture. The blue channel is what texture we tile in, where this map is blue. The red channel texture, where is it? Red channel texture is the texture we tile in, where this texture is red. So you can kind of see exactly how that works. And I've currently hard-coded the normal maps. Obviously, that is not going to fly in the real world. We will have to have additional little buttons down here for red channel normal texture and what have you. I wish there was a better way to do that, to generate some kind of little preview or show you the thumbnail of the mix map. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But there you have it. So that is a piece of terrain. It's a little bit less sensational than the last example, but it is working a little bit more correctly as well. And in this case, I've finally linked up a bunch of these buttons so that it's actually user modifiable. All right, that's it.